is my cue. So officially, guys, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to this week's IELTS webinar. We're going to be focusing on IELTS academic writing task 1, specifically how to deal with 2 diagram questions. I've said this during the intro, guys, but I'll say it again. Even if you're doing the general training, please stick around. Report writing is a very useful real-life skill, and you'll be introduced to new sorts of grammar as well. So even if you're doing general training, please stick around. Before I forget, let me introduce myself. My name is Yasser. I'm a teacher and teacher trainer with the British Council. I've taught many parts of the world, but I'm currently in New Delhi in India. First off, guys, thank you for taking time out of your day to join us, most importantly, and thank you for introducing yourselves in the chat box. We have people here from all over the globe. I always say it's a A to Z, from Argentina to Zambia, and every country, city you can think of in between. Thank you so much once again for joining us. Before we do start, guys, there's a couple things I'd like to do. The first is to introduce you to my brilliant team, Team IELTS, the people I would not be able to do this without. If you've attended our webinars before, you've heard their names, you've heard their voices. We have Daniela in Glasgow, in Scotland. Mariana is in Zagreb in Croatia, and Aiden is in Wales. So you can say hi to them in the chat box. And the second thing I'd like to do, guys, is ask you a few questions about your relationship with the IELTS test and our webinar series. So could I get the first poll question up, please? So guys, we'd just like to know, if you can see the poll, please put your answers there. Otherwise, put your answers in the chat box. Have you taken the IELTS test already? Yes or no? And what score do you? So very quickly, we'd really appreciate if you could let us know if you've taken the test before and the score that you require. Remember, not the score that you want, the score that you need. I'll give you 10 more seconds. And can I see the results? So 20% of you have. Maybe you need to take the test again in order to get a sort of a higher score, higher band score. For 80%, and for a lot of people in the chat box, this is going to be your first and hopefully last time. Hopefully you're going to be so prepared, you're only going to need to do it once. Generally, you guys need a 6 and above as usual. So I hope there's something for everybody in today's webinar. Could I get the second poll question up, please? Guys, we'd also like to know if you've attended one of our webinars before. So again, yes or no, simple yes or no question. If you can't see the poll, just put it in the chat box. Have you attended one of our webinars before? And also, how did you hear about our webinar series? We'd like to know so that we can get in touch with more people. So we have Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, British Council website, email, friends and family. So it helps us to know the best way to reach out to people. And can I see the results, please? So 64% of you have attended one of our webinars before. That's amazing. Thank you for joining us again. A huge welcome back. For 36%, this is going to be a first and hopefully not last webinar. Remember, we do run these every Thursday. Please make sure you join us again. And most of you have heard of our webinars either through the website or an email from the Council. Awesome. One last question. Guys, when you registered for this webinar, you should also have received a link to the British Council IELTS study pack, which I'll talk about in more detail towards the end when we look at resources. Right now, I'd just like to know if you've received the sort of link to the study pack or not. So yes or no. And if yes, and you've had the chance to use it, have you found it useful? So a few 10, 15 more seconds to answer those questions. All right, can I see the results? So close to 70% of you have, that's great. 33% of you haven't, don't worry. Mariana, who's our resident link ninja, was going to post the link in the chat box. Thank you. So please make sure you check it out. I personally think it's very useful, and so do the people who've had the chance to use it. So please make sure you check it out. Also, guys, when you do check out the website, use the same login information that you used to register for the webinar with. Because you're already logged into the British Council system, so you don't have to register again. You can just sign in directly. Let's look at some information about this webinar. As usual, 1 hour, including time for questions at the end. Our webinars are very interactive. Please use the chat box, the box used to introduce yourself, to respond to me. This is what the icon looks like. If there's a question that you would like to ask, please put it in the Q&A. One of the team will answer it for you, or if it's something that's useful for everyone, we'll save it and answer it at the end. But remember, when I ask you something, chat box, if there's a question that you would like to ask, please make sure you put it in the Q&A. It might not be possible to answer everyone's question, so if you see one that's very similar to yours, please like it. That'll help us to prioritize sort of the most important questions to ask and answer. As usual, this webinar is being recorded, and you'll be emailed over the next 3 days with the link. If you have any questions about your specific test booking, the best people to get in touch with would be the ones at your local British Council Test Centre, because they'll have the most up-to-date information. And as usual, we take data protection very seriously at the British Council, so please do not share phone numbers and personal information. And you guys always are extremely courteous, but I'm legally obligated to say this because it's on the screen. Please be courteous at all times, otherwise you'll be excluded from the web. All right, let's take a look at what we're going to focus on today. Very quickly, an overview of writing task 1. Before we jump into the focus of today's session, 2 diagram questions. What are the problems? How do we handle those problems? How do we analyze the question? How do we write the introduction? How do we organize our answers? Q&A, and then resources. It might not seem like a lot, but guys, trust me, there's a lot to get through. So could you please let me know in the chat box if you are ready? Should we start? Let me know if you're ready. Benicious, the names are going really fast. Lisa, Falbun, Davy, Rona, everybody's ready. Awesome. Let's get started. Guys, I'd like you to help me out first. Let's look at an overview of writing task 1. Remember, you have to write a report, which is basically a description and summary of data. However, the data can be presented in many different forms. We've looked at these forms in previous webinars. So guys, could you help me fill in these blanks? So we have line graphs, we have bar charts. What about PC? Thank you, Haninwe. Pie charts. What about something with M or plans? Marina, Busra, maps or plans. Perfect. What about PD? What is PD? Lian is saying process diagrams. Excellent. What about T? Brigitte, you're saying Phoenix, and then with tables. Excellent. You must write a minimum of how many words in your report? 150 words. Excellent, Shino and Marina. And are advised to spend how much time? Thank you, Laura. 20 minutes, exactly. And guys, there's a logical rationale behind spending 20 minutes out of the 60 minutes total that you have in the writing test. Because task 1 is worth 1/3 of your score, or 33% of your score, you should spend 1/3 or 33% of the time. So 1/3 of 60 minutes is 20 minutes, which is why you should spend 20 minutes on task 1. Excellent. Now, guys, in previous webinars, we've covered all of these different different types of diagrams. I'm sure you practiced a lot with them, but sometimes you might come across what's known as a 2-diagram question. Usually, task 1 questions have 1 diagram, but sometimes you might come across 2-diagram questions. Have you guys come across any of these questions? Have you seen them? Before I show you an example of one, Laura has. Gertrude hasn't. So it's a mix. Some people have, some people haven't. Let me show you an example of what a 2-diagram question might look like. So it might look something like this. So we have 2 diagrams. Guys, we identified the types of diagrams in the previous slide. What 2 types do you see up here? Forget about the information. Just what are the types of diagrams you see on the screen right now? Chabu saying a line diagram or a line graph. Good. And the other one is a table. Excellent. Now, when my learners in my classes come across these 2 diagram questions, they get very confused. How do you guys feel about 2 diagrams? There's some of my learners are scared of them. They don't like them. They're very confused. How do you guys feel? Gertrude saying it's complex. Okay. Shino saying it's a bit complicated. Seems complicated. And I like the word seems. It seems complicated, but I don't think it actually is. Because if you know how to construct a report for a single diagram, if you've practiced all of the different diagrams and you know how to construct a single diagram report, you will have no problem coming up with a 2-diagram report. You basically have to combine them together. But what are the problems test takers face, or people who don't have a lot of experience with these diagrams? What are these problems? What do they face? Let me ask you guys, what are some of the problems that you guys come across? In my classes, some of my learners say they don't know where to start. And Octavia is saying they don't know how to group or organize the answer. Would you guys agree with these 2 problems? Figuring out how to start your report, because you're not dealing with 1, you're dealing with 2, and also how to organize the answer. Awesome. So these are the 2 problems. I think everybody's saying yes in the chat box. These are the 2 problems we're going to deal with today. So the first thing we can do is ask yourself, where do you start? How do you start? I think the first step is to analyze the question. And in terms of two diagram questions, you can divide them into two broad categories. Do the diagrams show different but connected information? So the information is always going to be connected, but is it quite different but connected information, or is it closely related information? What do the two diagrams show? Different but connected or closely related? I think this will become clear to understand once we look at some examples. Do you guys want to look at some examples? Should we look at some examples? Let's look at two questions and try to figure out if they're different but connected or closely related. All right. And for that, we'll look at the first one. We'll look at the sample question that we looked at before. What do you guys think? Take a look at this information. And I'll give you 20 seconds to look at the information you see on your screen, and then I'll put up a poll question. All right, can I get the poll question up, please? So guys, what type of informations do these two diagrams show? Different but connected or closely related? And then we'll work together to check. Ten more seconds. Excellent, Milita in the chat box. Marigold, look again. All right, can I see the results, please? So 60% of you have said it's different but connected, and I would agree. But guys, let's break this down. Why have you said it's different but connected? So let's look at the most basic difference. What's the most basic difference? What's the most basic difference? Look at the two diagrams. Are they the same type of diagrams? Are the diagrams the same type or same category? No, one is remember we identified this. What is the one on the left? Line graph, and the one on the right is a table. So two different types of diagram. Good. Let's look at what is covered in these diagrams. So let's look at a time frame. Is there a time frame in the line graph? Yes, but is there one in the table? No. So that's another difference. Sort of dynamic versus static. Is the line graph about any particular country? No. What is that information about? It's deeply saying it's overall or global, exactly. Versus the table, which has how many countries? Is it a global or specific countries? Two specific countries. So I think the information is different, but what is the connection? What is the connection though? Exactly, water consumption. Both of them are generally about water consumption and water usage. So it's different information, but there is a connection. So is it clear, guys, how this is different but connected? Clear how it's different but connected? Awesome. Let's look at another task now. Again, guys, I'll give you 20 seconds to look at the information. We'll try to shut up, 20 seconds, and I'll put up a poll question. All right, can I get the next poll up, please? So guys, what type of information do these diagrams show? Different but connected or closely related? And can I see the results? This time, 81% of you have picked closely related. This might have been a process of elimination. If the previous one was just different but connected, this one's closely related. But I'm going to give you guys the benefit of the doubt and think, and I'm going to zoom you actually analyze the information. It is closely related. All right, let's try to understand why. How is this information closely related? So again, is the type of data the same? The diagram data, the diagrams in the data? Yes, both of them are what? Same type of diagram. Exactly. What about the time frame? Generally the same. Good. And what are both of the diagrams about? Both are about computer ownership. Excellent. So I would say this information is closely related. Somebody said that there's more details in one of the graphs. Excellent. But the information is closely related. So okay, go saying the only difference is general versus specific computer ownership. Excellent, right? So guys, but is it clear now the difference between different but connected and closely related information? Is the difference clear now? Perfect. So that's the first step when you're analyzing, figuring out which category is this two diagram question. Is it different but connected, or is it closely related? Because how you sort of tackle these two sort of categories is slightly different. And let's do that together. Let's focus on them one by one. Guys, please put your answers in the chat box. So let's should we start with the different but connected? Let's start with the different but connected. And we'll start with that, but after with the first step in terms of analyzing the question, we've done that. We've figured out the category. The next step is to write the introduction. And we're going to start off by doing that with a different but connected diagram. Now, guys, those of you who attended our previous webinars before, Academic Writing Task 1, we sort of hammer home what you guys need to include in your introductions. So there's two main components that you need to include in any sort of introduction in a report. Could you help me highlight what those two things are? Laura's saying a paraphrase for sure. You're paraphrasing the question so the reader understands what the diagram is about. So you're rephrasing the topic Leanne saying. And what's the other thing? Shino's saying the overview. Excellent. Those are the two key components. Now, guys, what is an overview? What do we mean by the overview? What is an overview? So for those of you who are joining, let's help our solo participants who are joining us for the first time. What is an overview? The key information, Maria saying the general point, the key features, Laura saying the overall picture, exactly. So what I would say the overview is the most important takeaway, the key takeaway. If you could tell somebody else only one thing about the diagram, what would that thing be? The most important thing. Now, guys, in a single diagram question, we have one paraphrase and one overview. But here, how many diagrams are we dealing with? How many diagrams are we dealing with? Two. And remember, we said the diagrams there's a connection, but they're quite different. So how many paraphrases do you think they're going to be? Two paraphrases. You need to rephrase what both diagrams show. And what about overviews? Are the overviews going to be the same or different? The overviews are going to be different as well because two different diagrams, so two different overviews. So how many overviews do you think they're going to be? An overview for both diagrams. So in this, the only difference between a single and a double diagram question is in a single, you'll have one paraphrase and one overview. In a two diagram, you'll have two paraphrases, two overviews, and also you could talk about the connection between the diagrams. You can highlight the connection between the two diagrams. All right. So guys, do you want should we work together to construct an introduction? Very quickly, let's work together to construct an introduction. I'm going to show you the question again. And first, let's figure out what our two paraphrases are. Of course, the reader or the examiner cannot see the diagrams. So we want to very simply explain to the reader what is in the diagram. That's our first thing. So guys, what's going on in that first diagram? How would we rephrase or paraphrase the task for the first diagram? What does that diagram show? How would we phrase it? Let me know in the chat box. What does that first diagram show? Sunrise, we're not talking about the, okay, Beto, global use, global water usage, right? From which year to which year? Global water usage from 1900 to 2000. Done. We've explained what this diagram shows. What about the next diagram? What about the table? What does that diagram show? How water is used in two countries specifically, Brazil and Congo. The difference in water usage between Brazil and Congo. Excellent. We're done. We've explained to the reader what the two diagrams show. Now let's work together to figure out the overview, the key takeaway of each diagram. So guys, what's the key takeaway from the line graph? What's the key or most important takeaway from the line graph, do you think? What's the most important takeaway from the line graph? Hinman, you're saying agriculture. Okay, what's the key trend? Use of water increases, but look at them. We can go into the details in the body. Overall, is there an increase across the board? I think that's what you guys are saying. Overall, there's an increase in water usage, in the use of water. All three, agriculture, industrial use, and domestic, they've increased. You can go into the details in the body. In the overview, overall water usage is increased. What about, what's the most important point in the table? What's the most important part? Look at the name of the table, water consumption in Brazil and Congo. What's the most important part of that table, Lee? So Brazil consumes much more water than Congo. Simple. Done. So that's, again, we can go into the details in the body. Right now, we just want to talk about the key takeaway. So guys, I'll give you 15 seconds to read this introduction, and then let's see if our ideas were the same as what you see on your screen, and then we'll break it down using the colors. So 15 seconds, guys, starting now. So just read the introduction. All right, guys, let's analyze it. It says the two diagrams both depict data on the consumption of water. What is that? What is that? What is the function of that sentence? Especially the two words in red. What is the function of this sentence? What are we doing? The two diagrams both depict data on the consumption. Excellent, Camila. The connection, the link between the two diagrams. What about in the next sentence, the part in purple? The line graph shows global water usage in agriculture, industry, and homes from 1900 to 2000. What is that? The paraphrase for the line graph. Was that the information that we also came up with? More or less, wasn't that the same thing that we came up with as well? Yes, exactly. Whereas the table shows how much water was used for agriculture and personal use in Brazil and Congo. What is that part? What is the purpose of that next part? The second half of that sentence? The paraphrase for the table. Again, is that not what we came up with? How water was used in Brazil and Congo? More or less the same, right? So we are done with the two paraphrases. It's clear from the graph that there was an overall increase in the use of water worldwide. What is that part in blue? There was an overall increase in the use of water worldwide. An overview for the line graph, and from the table that Brazil had far greater personal water usage than Congo. That's the overview from the table. Again, isn't that the information that we extracted as well? Right? So what do you guys think? Simple, isn't it simple if you think of it that way? I like to call it sort of like the 2 + 2 rule. 2 paraphrases, 2 overviews, connection, you're done with the introduction. Mercedes is in connection, paraphrasing, overview, and you're done. Simple. You're letting the reader know what the connection is, you're explaining what each diagram shows, and you're highlighting the key feature, the key takeaway of each diagram. You've accomplished what you're supposed to do in the introduction. Right? So don't worry if this is a lot to process right now. Once you get the recording, you can come back and watch this part again. You can pause once you get to this slide and read it again in more detail. All right. So once we're done with the introduction, guys, what's next? We need to organize the description of the diagrams that are different but connected. So we're done with the introduction. What comes next? The introduction has the paraphrase and the overview. What's going to come next? The body. And what do we do in the body? The body is where we go into details. Exactly. Now, guys, in a single diagram question, you can use one body paragraph because all of the information can fit in one paragraph. But here, because the diagrams are different, how many body paragraphs do you think you need? Exactly, Gertrude, Camila. I would go with 2 body paragraphs. Body paragraph 1, you go into details from the first diagram supporting your overview. Body paragraph 2, data from the second diagram supporting your overview. And then conclusion. It says if time. Is a conclusion absolutely necessary in a report? Everybody in the chat box is saying no, and I would agree. They are not necessary. Guys, report writing is a different type, a different style of writing. In an essay, conclusions are necessary. If you don't include a conclusion, technically it's an incomplete task but that is a different type of writing. In reports, conclusions are not necessary. Maybe you can write a conclusion if you need to reach the word count. Maybe you have a little bit of time. You can include a conclusion, but like Lovelace saying it's optional. And what you can do is just rephrase the overview because the overview is the key takeaway. Just rephrase the overview. Guys, do you want to see what the body paragraphs look like? Should we look at a model? Yes. But before I do that, what did we say the overview for the first graph was? What was the overview for the first graph? What was the overview for the first graph? Increase overall, exactly. And do you remember what the categories were? Do you remember what the categories were? Agriculture, excellent. Domestic use, industrial. Excellent. So in this paragraph is where you would go into the details, right? How much did people use earlier? How much did they use in the end? And so on. So let me show you the body paragraph and let me see if our ideas were correct. So I'll give you guys 15 seconds to read this paragraph, guys. 15 seconds to read this paragraph. And let me know once you're done, please. Five seconds left. All right, so you're done. But guys, so is the information the same is it the same as what we expected? Details about those three sectors? Perfect. Yes. Right. So my learners selected information related to each of the sectors and put it as details in the body paragraph. What about the second? What do you expect to see in the second body paragraph? What do you expect to see in the second body paragraph? Hamid Reza, because of time constraints, we have to do this a bit quickly, but once you get the recording, you can pause and read it in more detail. The details of the table, details about Brazil and Congo. Water usage in Brazil and Congo. Excellent. So guys, here, I'll give you 15 seconds to read this as well. Let me know once you're done. 15 to 20 seconds. All right, guys, time's up. What do you think? Is the information there? Everything that is it the same information as we expected? The population, the land, but most importantly, how much is used per person. So was this simple? Was it complicated or simple? If we go step by step, we explain what the two diagrams show, we very carefully explain what is in the overview, then we just use the overview as an umbrella to fill in the details. Excellent job. But guys, you also noticed that there were some words and phrases in different colors. So I hope you were paying attention. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put up a poll question. We need to figure out what these words and phrases, what the colors mean. So I'm going to put this up as a poll question. So guys, what is the language in blue used to show? Is it used to show changes, comparisons, or approximations? What is the language in green used to show? Again, changes, comparisons, or approximations. And what is the language in red used to show? Changes, comparisons, and approximations. If you can't see the poll, just put your answers in the chat box. You need to identify the function of each color. I'll give you guys maybe 20 seconds. You need to identify the function of each color. Remember, guys, please put your answers in the chat box, not the Q&A. I'm not going to have access to the Q&A until the very end. Five more seconds. All right, can I see the results, please? Excellent. All right, guys. So 77% of you have said that the language in blue is for comparisons. Yes, much larger, different, as opposed to, compared to, more, and so on. Perfect. In terms of green, 73% of you picked approximations. Again, correct. Just over, approximately, around, about, and so on. And that leaves us with red, which is changes, rise, risen, grew. Perfect. Excellent job, guys. Now, guys, you'll notice that there are two body paragraphs, but there's no conclusion. Is that okay? Can I leave it without a conclusion? Yep. I'm not putting in a conclusion because I don't need to, right? It's not absolutely necessary. So, guys, is it clear how to deal with the two diagrams that have different but related information? Different but connected information? Excellent job. Let's move on to the other category. What was the other category, guys? Do you remember? It was different but connected. What was the other one? Excellent, Shino, Ian, Prajit, Rizwan, closely related. Let's look at that. Let's look at that now. So how do we analyze two diagrams with closely related information? What we can do is we can ask ourselves, what are the main differences and or similarities? And very importantly, does one diagram give more of a general picture and the other more detailed? Which is which? Ala Abed has mentioned the computer ownership question we looked at previously. That's what we're going to look at today as well. That's what we're going to look at right now. So guys, let's say the diagram on the left is A and the diagram on the right is B, right? So we have A and B. Out of these two diagrams, which one is more general and which one is more specific? I'm going to put up a poll question. So guys, which diagram gives more general information? A, the one on the left, or B, the one on the right? I'll give you guys maybe 20 seconds. And can I see the results? Good. 80% of you have picked A, which is the diagram on the left, and I would agree. That information is more general, while B has more specific information. And Lovelace is saying the same thing as well. Right? Great job. So guys, that's our first step to figure out which one has more general information and which one has more specific information. But as we can see, all those reasons why they're closely related as well. Now what we want to do is we want to analyze this information. Remember, what are the similarities? What are the differences? What we can do is maybe use a table like this. So guys, we have bar chart A, bar chart B. Remember, we identified that they're both bar charts. And let's look at these sort of categories that we're going to look at. We have data format, we have time period, we have main trends, which will help us with the overview, and then we have other or extra information. So guys, can you help me fill this table up? Can you help me populate this table? Can you help me fill it up? We'll look at the diagrams again, but can you help me fill it up? I'm asking for your help. Yes, good. Okay. Thank you, guys. So let's try. Let's try. I think you can do more than try. I think you can help me fill this up. So what is we're going to look at the first column first. I want you guys to focus on the data format. So I'm going to show you the diagrams again. So we said they're bar charts, but what is the format? What is the information presented in? Which? Excellent, Shino. It is Abdurrahman, Anastasia. It's percentage. Excellent job. What is the next thing that we need to focus on? What is the next thing we need? The year, the period, or the year. So that's what I want you guys to help me with next. Let's look at the diagrams. Can you help me figure out which years each diagram is talking about? 2002, 2010, but be careful. Is it exactly the same or is it different, or is there a difference? Be careful. Is it the same or different? It's different. There is a very, very subtle difference. Look at it carefully. Look at it carefully. Excellent, Mercedes. Lakshan, Ian, exactly. The first diagram, diagram A, is from 2002 to 2010, but what is the interval? How many years? What's the interval between 2002, 2010? 2 years, 2002, 2004, 2006, 2008, and 2010. But what about the second diagram? Does it cover all of those years? No, only 2 specific years. Which ones? Excellent, 2002 and 2010. Does it have information about 2004, 2006, 2008? No. Now, if you, Rima saying, oh, yeah. Now, if we didn't take the time to do this, is it possible that we would have made a mistake? If we didn't take the time, slow down and analyze. And when I do this with my learners, half of my class, they make this mistake. They say the years are the same, but they're not. The start is and the beginning is. Sorry, the start and the end, sorry, are the same. But the time periods being discussed in the middle are, some of you saying you made that mistake too, but it's good you make the mistake now and not in the test. But is it clear the difference, guys, in terms of the period? Awesome. Now, guys, can you help me with the main trends, which will help us with the overview? Tanaba saying you show you make the mistake. No, you won't. All right, guys, let's start with graph A. What is the main trend? I think it's very simple. What's the main trend in graph A? Basically, overall increase, right? From 2002, 2010, overall increase. Perfect. What about graph B? There is an overall increase for sure, but what else? What else is important in graph B? There's overall increase, but what else? Overall increase across all educational levels as well, somebody said. Very important. Excellent. So overall increase in every educational level. And also, is there anything else that we could sort of see based on the educational level? The higher the educational level, what happens? The higher, excellent, Maria. The higher the degree or educational level, the higher the computer ownership. Excellent job. So it's the same overall increase, but I think graph B goes into more detail. Excellent job. And guys, is there any other information? So check out, let's compare the two of them. Is there any other information, extra information? I don't think graph A has any extra information. There is some extra information in graph B. What is that extra information? What is the extra information in graph B that's not there in graph A? What do you think? The educational levels, excellent. How many educational levels does it talk about? How many educational levels are depicted or shown in the graph? 5. Perfect job. So guys, have we analyzed the differences and similarities between these two graphs? What do you think? I think we've done a pretty good job. I think a pretty thorough and comprehensive job. I think we've broken it down and analyzed both the graphs in detail. What do we do now? What's our next step? What are we writing now? What part of the report are we writing? The introduction. Excellent. What is the rule for introductions with two diagrams? What's the formula you can use? It's like an equation. 2 plus 2 plus 2. Excellent. What is the first two? 2 plus 2. First is paraphrase. Excellent. What's the next two? The overviews. Perfect. And then also we can highlight. What's the third thing we can highlight? The connection. Excellent job, guys. Do you want to see an example of an introduction for a closely related diagram? Awesome. So guys, I'll give you maybe 30 seconds. I'll try to shut up, read this carefully, and then we'll break it down. We'll analyze it and break it. 30 seconds. Your time starts now. Let me know once you're done in the chat box. All right, guys, time's up. Let's look at the words in red, please. It says to, both, this also shows. What do those words indicate? What do those words and phrases indicate? The connection. Excellent, excellent. What is the purpose of that first sentence? It's the connection and sort of a paraphrase of the first diagram. Excellent, good. What about the next sentence? The first diagram shows a gradual rise in the number of people with computers between 2002 and 2010. The overview of the first diagram. Excellent. What about the next sentence? The second chart shows ownership and percentage in 2002 and 2010 by level of education. Is this the overview? No, this is the paraphrase of the second diagram, because it's telling the reader what the diagram shows. So it shows ownership and percentage in 2002 and 2010. Remember, not 2002. If my learner had written 2002 to 2010, would that be correct? 2002 to 2010? No, it's 2002 and 2010. By level of education. And what's the part in brown? An overall increase, but also shows that the higher the level of education, the higher the percentage of computer ownership. The overview of the second diagram. Excellent job. So we're done. Again, guys, complicated or simple? I think if you follow the 2 plus 2, it's simple. Right? Let's move on to, now we've done the introduction. What comes next? We've done the introduction with our overviews. What's next? The body paragraph. Now, guys, in the different but connected, we had 2 body paragraphs, remember? Because the diagrams were different. But here, are the diagrams different? Or basically the same? They're basically the same, sort, very closely related. They're both bar graphs. One is more general, one is more specific. And because this information is so closely related, how many body paragraphs do you think you need? I would say 1. You could do 2, but I think it makes the connection much clearer if you have 1 body paragraph, because then you can demonstrate how closely related the information is. Because remember, one is very general, so there might not be a lot to write in about that diagram. You would probably write more about the one that has more specific detail. So I would say put it in 1 body paragraph. You could write a brief description of the general data, for example, the overall increase in ownership. Then a description of the increase in ownership as educational level increases. And if there's a difference, if there's any difference in the 2 trends, a description. Guys, if I finish my introduction here, is it okay? If I finish my report here, is that okay? With the introduction and the body paragraph, is that fine? It's fine, exactly. But if I wanted to, what could I include? What's optional? The conclusion. Again, only if you have time. All right, guys, you want to see a body paragraph for my body paragraph for this type of graph, this type of diagram? 2 closely related diagrams? Good. So I'll put this up here. I'll give you 1 minute to read it carefully. And guys, what I want you to figure out is which information is related to graph A and which information is related to graph B. And then we'll also break down and look at the colors. So I'll give you about 1 minute, 10 seconds to read through it. Please let me know once you're done in the chat box. Your time starts now. Ten seconds left, guys. All right, guys, where does it talk about the first diagram, diagram A? Which sentences? I think the first couple of sentences, right? It says it shows the percentage of people, and then this goes from this 2002 to this 55, and 2000, and then 2010 7%. Is there anything more we can say about that diagram? No, that's about it. Remember, it was a very general diagram, which is why I think we can include it in 1 paragraph, because then the next diagram next sentence shows the connection. This increase is mirrored in the second bar chart. So it's showing the same increase. And then the rest of the paragraph is about the diagram that has more information. Which diagram is that? That is the second diagram, or diagram B. And then my learner picked out the information that they wanted to highlight. In 2002 for high school, college, and so on, right? So again, once you get this recording, you can pause when you get to the screen and read it again in more detail. Let's just focus, guys, on those words and phrases in different colors. Guys, let's start with blue. What is happening with those words and phrases in blue? What's the purpose? What purpose are they serving? Comparisons, excellent. By contrast, the highest, and so on. So blue is comparisons. What about red? The growth, increased and increased, rose, grew, changes. Awesome. And what about green? Approximately, about, around, over. Approximations. Excellent job. Guys, have we seen these words and phrases before? Do you recognize them? Where did you see them? Where did you see them? In the previous report, Mercedes. Excellent. And you'll see them in any sort of report where you sort of have to compare stuff. So that's another thing that's really nice, I think, about writing task 1 in the academic test. The language you use is very similar. If you practice using this language, you can apply it to different types of reports. Awesome, guys. So let's recap. What did we say? What did we say the first category of question was when we have two diagrams? When we have two diagrams, what's the first category? So we had two types of two diagram questions. What's the first one? Different but connected. Excellent. Different but connected or different but related. So what do we do here? Here we ask ourselves, what is the connection? And then how many paraphrases and how many overviews are we writing? What's the rule? 2 plus 2. Excellent. And how many body paragraphs? 2 body paragraphs. Put this connection into deduction, write 2 body paragraphs. What's the other category? What's the next category? We have different but connected. We also have closely related. What do we do with the closely related diagrams? We analyze to look at the main similarities, differences, or changes. How many paraphrases and overviews? Again, 2 plus 2, but what's the difference? We have only 1 body paragraph. Generally, you can write 1 body paragraph. So guys, what do you think? Is it clear now? Don't worry, I know there was a lot of information, lots of things that we looked at today. Don't worry about the details, but is the concept clear? How to deal with 2 diagram questions? And once you get a little bit of practice, I promise it's going to become much easier. You'll get a link to the recording so you can go back and look at it in more detail as well. So that brings us to the end of this webinar. Thank you so much. We're going to jump to the Q&A now. But before we do that, guys, in the chat box, could you please let us know what you liked about this webinar? Because it really helps us to put these things together. So please let us know what you liked about this webinar. And I'll show you also our schedule for upcoming webinars. Next week, we're looking at writing task 2, problems and solutions. The week after that, vocabulary for IELTS, and then general training reading on Thursday, the 31st of August. Here's some information about the study pack. Mariana is going to put the link in the chat box. It's basically a compilation of links and resources that you can use to start practicing for the test by yourself. It'll give you access to 8 webinars, especially if your test is coming soon and you're not able to attend our future webinars. Make sure you check this study pack out. It has everything that you need. So again, guys, I'm going to jump to the Q&A. Let us know what you liked about this webinar in the chat box. Could somebody help me, please?
Hi, Yasser.
Hi, Patricia. Hi, Daniela. Sorry.
Okay, so we've got a few questions. We've got a few questions that we've kept throughout the webinar. So thank you for the patience of people waiting for their questions to be answered. Both
Sure.
Jamshid and Liza ask about keeping the overview as a separate paragraph. What do you think about that?
We get asked this question every time we do academic writing task 1, guys. And my counter question to you is why? You don't need to. The introduction and overview, they work together. And if you put them in separate paragraphs, it sort of breaks that connection. Now remember, your paraphrase might be 1 sentence, your overview might be 1 sentence. You'll end up with 2 one-sentence paragraphs, which doesn't make any sense. Look at it from the perspective of the reader. The paraphrase allows the reader to understand what the diagram shows, and the next sentence indicates what the main or the key takeaway is. So they're very closely related, and I think the rest of the team thinks as well, if you separate them, you break that connection. And it's easier for you and for the reader to put everything in 1 paragraph.
Absolutely. Thanks, Yasser. Another question from Patricia, who perhaps missed the first 2 minutes of today's webinar. This question is, what types of diagram can appear in task 1?
Sure. So Patricia, I think you missed the beginning. There's a whole bunch of diagrams that can show up. So we have everything from line graphs, bar graphs, tables, process diagrams, pie charts, or it could be a mix of the 2 of them, like we looked at in today's webinar. Could be process diagram as well. And we have webinars for each of these sort of diagrams, so you can check out the schedule that Marianne is going to post shortly.
Great. So Liza asks another question. about the number of key features. So how many key features are enough?
Like I said, I don't think there's a sort of concrete, necessarily fixed answer to that question. I think what you need to, and I don't think you should approach it that way. I think what you should do is focus on what you are saying in the overview. The purpose of the body paragraph is to give details that flesh out the overview. So the overview is the key takeaway, and then what you're doing in the body is expanding on that overview and filling in the details. It's like the overview is like you're setting out the boundary of your information, and the body paragraphs you're coloring in the details. So think of it that way rather than I think a specific.
Another question, Yasser, that we've been asked a couple of times today is about vocabulary. So Maya asks the question, should we use the word overall when writing the overview?
If I don't see why not. If the overview, if the thing that you're talking about in the overview is overall picture, definitely you can use overall. Absolutely no problem.
Great. Thanks very much, Yasser. We'll let you move on to the resources. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you guys for your feedback. Again, if you haven't already, please let us know what you liked about this webinar because it really helps us put these together. I wanted to talk a little bit about the resources that you can use that are available through the British Council. So in terms of preparation, guys, if there's only one website that you need to make sure you check out that has everything that you need, it's takeielts.org. It has all the support material required, including free practice tests, detailed information about the format. And if you're planning, for example, on taking the IELTS on computer, but you want to get a taste of what it's going to feel like, it also has a free familiarization of the IELTS and computer test. Mariana, thank you. Mariana's our link ninja. She's putting the links in the chat box as I speak. And thank you for your feedback. Again, if you haven't already, please let us know what you liked about this webinar. Take IELTS also runs an official Facebook page. So if there's a question that I haven't answered, or there's a question that you wake up in the middle of the night and you want answered, please post it on the Facebook page, and one of our experts will answer it. And there's also live sessions where you can interact with experts, sort of live. You can interact with them directly. In terms of online resources, we would recommend Road to IELTS. It was developed in conjunction with the British Council. It has downloadable practice tests, interactive activities, tips and strategies for all of the question types. There's a certain number of hours that you can access for free. If you register to take the IELTS tests with the British Council, which is what we hope and recommend that you do, you'll get access to more hours, so extra preparation time on Road to IELTS. Or if you want to access the full thing, you can buy the whole service suite. You can download for free, though, right now on your phone. It's available both on the Apple Store and Google Play Store, the IELTS Prep app. It'll give you instant access to free practice tests, exercises, quizzes, grammar exercises, and more. And it also includes 4 extra complete practice tests with model answers that are not available anywhere else. They're exclusive to the app. You will have to pay a nominal fee for these tests, but like I said, they're exclusive to the app. They're not available anywhere else. The rest of the app, however, is free. There's a whole range of books and study guides available. Anything printed by the Cambridge University Press is amazing, but especially the official Cambridge IELTS test series. They're authentic tests that have been used in the past, so the best and most realistic way to practice. And guys, if you want to focus on, for example, cohesive devices, the language for comparisons, approximations, changes, or any sort of general grammatical concept, please check out learnenglish.britishcouncil.org/grammar. Very clear explanations and lots of different practice exercises. And of course, please make sure you check out the study guide, especially if you're in a bit of a time crunch and you might not have time to attend the rest of our webinars. Please make sure you check out the study pack. It has all the key essential information that you need to start preparing for the test. That leaves me with only one thing to say. Thank you so much, guys, for attending. Thank you so much for participating so enthusiastically. Next week, remember, we're going to be looking at writing Task 2, problems and solutions in more detail. So we really hope to see you guys here same time next week. Same time or earlier in the day in our morning session, whichever is more convenient for you. But basically, see you guys next week. Thank you for your feedback. Take care, stay safe, keep washing your hands, and see you guys soon. Take care, bye-bye. Bye-bye, everybody.